Hey Sarah, Jasmine here, and I just wanted to do a quick recording for you to go over your post on your eye. First of all, I love it. I hope you're really enjoying it, and I really enjoy, I don't know about you, but seeing like the procedural, like you have here, sorry, that is the painted, you said, versus the procedural here. And I love how we can pretty much get very similar results from a painted texture in a procedural way by just using simple functions like the noise and the ramp. And I know you mentioned that you like the procedural better, and I actually agree with you in a lot of ways, in my own personal opinion too. When you're working with materials, procedurals definitely has a lot of pros. They're not heavy in size, and the resolution too is not a big deal, because even here you can see how sharp and nice and crisp that is versus your painted, which definitely it has like a very softer look, right? And that's mainly due to that it's a texture. And this might run into limitations. Let's say if it's not high res enough and you're like going in really close, and then it's going to break up, and then you're going to have to either do a new version of the texture that's higher res, or think of something else. Where procedurals, you don't run into that problem because it's procedural. So that being said, let's go through this. I was looking at your images here, and I will say I think it's a great start. The one thing before we go into this is that and this is more of a lighting thing, that it's very distracting to have a reflection over the pupil like this. If you look at lighting references, you most always notice that you don't see the ding or the reflection over this black area. And there's a reason why. In real case scenarios, you won't see it as much, but then it's also just very distracting. All of a sudden, I'm kind of like focused on this reflection, and not so much like the eye itself. And especially reflections like this, they're usually probably less prominent. And if you look at, that's why most of the stylized animations, you'll see just like a very simple ding. The eye ding is what, I don't know if you know what I'm referring to, but it's like that circular highlight. Usually it's circular, but it could be, a square or whatever, but it's usually like super simplified. I can bring up some examples to show you that. But the one thing I will say, looking at your eye, is the first thing that stands out is that this edge feels really harsh and very, I want to say procedural, I guess. Like, we want to make this feel more organic, but then another thing too is the color, right? This is going, and this goes on with a lot of things in lighting, that we think dark and we think black, that it should just go black, but really, even the darks, and especially like in shadows and everything, nothing is really pure black. It always has some kind of essence of a color in it. So I was taking a look at some eyes, and you can see this, like it has that dark ring around it, but look at the tone, look at the color. It's not going to black like the pupil black. It's keeping in line with the color of the iris, so it's just like a darker blue. And the same thing you can see here. It's a little bit more dramatic and we're getting closer up, but you're getting that line. It's also a little bit softer, but it's getting pretty dark in there. But if I were to pick it, you would see that it has shades of blue and green probably in it. And then also, we were talking about the highlight. Notice how this highlight is not creeping into the pupil area. And let's see if the case is the same here. Yeah, the highlight's kind of keeping towards the iris. Same here. So you see this is like a kind of more typical ding with the round highlight, but it's not in the pupil. So that's something that you really want to keep in mind. Again, that's more of a lighting thing, but with the eye, it's really important. And like, look here, look at the around here. It's a very blue. It is a darker shade. So that's something you want to keep in mind when I was looking at yours. That the foundation is there. We just need to start tweaking, making it feel more organic. And then even, I'd love to see if you could play a little bit more with a little bit of the variation here. I didn't see a reference. If you can include your reference of the eye that you're working off of too, that would be really great. And then it would be cool to get some more variation in there. But yeah, overall, I think it's a really good start. You mentioned something about the UVs. I think your UVs are looking good. I know UVs can be daunting in the beginning, but trust me, they end up being your friend. And then there was even a point in my career, I remember when I was like UV mapping something, and I was like, this is kind of therapeutic. I know, I'm like, I probably don't think that often, but it is a thing. So hit some of those notes and yeah, let me know how it goes. With that, happy lighting!